Greetings. I'm pleased to open this 67th annual business meeting of the American Finance Association. My name is David Pyle. I'm your Executive Secretary and Treasurer, and my first responsibility is to give you a report in that capacity. The Association's financial condition continues to be robust. Net income fell this year because of our dividend to all of you in reducing the cost of a membership by 50%. Despite that, our net worth continued to increase, in fact gaining 17.4% over the fiscal year ending last September. The other thing that I do as your secretary is manage a lot of our business relationships, the chief one, of course, being with Blackwell Publishing. And in their job publishing the journal and taking care of the membership and so forth, and putting up our website, they continue to serve us very well. And our relationship with our other major vendors, SSRN, who provides the online program system, and Berkeley Electronic Press, which provides the journal's online submission system, our relationships there continue to go along just fine. One of the things that we've innovated with in the last couple of years is to add to our site a history page. And the historian, as many of you know, I'm sure, is Steve Boozer. And he's continuing to manage that process, which consists of interviewing colleagues who have been important in the development of financial economics. As some of you know, and I hope all of you will know, there are interviews, streaming interviews, with Harry Markowitz, Bill Sharp, Paul Samuelson, and Robert Burton, and they've been available for some time now. Recently, an interview with Myron Scholes has been added to that history page. The history page is getting a fair number of hits, and you might want to look at it, and you might want to share it with your students. It gives some rather interesting insights on how research ideas have developed in our field. We plan 2 additional interviews for 2007. And we must, and do, acknowledge and appreciate the support of Dimension Fund associates in making and editing these interviews. And now I turn the microphone over to our president, who will report on association matters.
Thank you, David. Hello, everybody. I'm Rick Green. I'm the president of the American Finance Association. I've been on the executive committee a long time now, longer than almost anybody except maybe Renee. And first as an editor and then as an elected officer. So this is my last chance to say thank you to David Pyle. He just does a remarkable job in all sorts of ways that are not transparent to the membership, but are very obvious to the officers of the association. It's not just his sincerity and his hard work, he's skilled at it. He has figured out how to manage the association and manage us, because we're busy and easily distracted, without governing the association and while letting us govern the association. So none of my activities on behalf of the association could have been anywhere nearly as successful as they have been without his help. My first job here is to report on the election results. Darrell Duffy is the incoming vice president. His term will start at the end of these meetings. You all elected 3 new directors: Patrick Bolton, Peter DiMarzo, and Jan Wang. I want to also thank the retiring directors, Coase John, Pete Kyle, and Francis Longstaff, for their advice to the executive committee and their help running the association during their terms. A nominating committee has been formed. We appointed one at the board of directors meeting yesterday. Ken, as the new president, will chair that committee. The names will all be on the website, and you should let them know whatever suggestions and advice you have for who would make good officers. Okay. As you know, we have a fellows program, and each year the outgoing president becomes a fellow automatically. I didn't have to do anything. And typically the fellows elect a new fellow also. And the fellow that they've elected this year is Lars Hansen, who will be joining the AFA Fellows. Now, we have one piece of news I should share with you. Earlier this year, we were approached by Morgan Stanley in the person of Joe Lansam about their interest in sponsoring a major award jointly with the AFA. And they very much wanted an award which would go to actually supporting new research. So we had a number of conversations back and forth with them and with the executive committee, and since with the board, and we converged on the following model. There will now be a Morgan Stanley American Finance Association Award for Excellence in Finance, which will be a career achievement award for someone who has made sustained intellectual contributions to our field. The award will alternate years with the Fisher-Black Award, and the selection process will run much like the Fisher-Black process. The outgoing president will chair a committee to select the winner. Now, the winner gets a lot of prestige, but does not actually get any money. That's the bad news. The actual award will be a gift of $200,000 that will be directed by the winner to a nonprofit, presumably a university of his or her choice, to support new research in finance in whatever way the winner thinks is most appropriate. So we're very pleased with this concept. It allows us both to recognize one of our generals, one of our leaders, and acknowledge all they've done for us as a field, and simultaneously to actually support new research activities. Yesterday, the board appointed a selection committee for the first award. The committee will be chaired by the outgoing president, which is me. And then there will be one former president, who will be Franklin Allen. There will be a representative of the editorial board, John Graham, and a representative of the AFA board, Francis Longstaff. And finally, the last person on the committee will be the most recent winner of the Fisher-Black Award, which you will soon learn. You will soon learn the identity of that person, okay? And they've all agreed to serve. I'd like to now introduce Joe Langsam of Morgan Stanley to say a few words about the award. Joe.
Thank you very much. As an individual fortunate enough to have spent at least a good part of the past 20 years associated with academic finance, albeit somewhat tangentially, and as a representative of Morgan Stanley, I want to thank the AFA for partnering with us in the development of this award. I'd be very remiss if I didn't mention specifically the work of Rick Green and David Pyle. Without whom this award would definitely not exist. Those of us in the business end of finance all too often fail to recognize, much less acknowledge, that so much of our prosperity is based upon academic research. Fortunate for us and for our wallets, this is a public good. I know that John Mack, Morgan Stanley, desires that this award will lead to greater recognition of the academic contributors and hopes to generate even more academic research, from which, again, we will each prosper. Specifically, I hope I will. Anyway, once again, personally, as a representative of Morgan Stanley, I want to thank the AFA it has been a delight to work with you. And I very much look forward to next year when we will find out who the first winner is. Thank you again.
Next up is Ken French, who's going to give the program chair report.
Thanks, Rick. As some of you know, the competition this year was pretty intense for slots on the AFA program. We had 1,173 submissions, which is about 8% higher than last year's record, which was substantially higher than the prior records. And the acceptance rate, we had a total of 146 papers accepted, which is an acceptance rate of just slightly over 12%. So for perspective, that's about the same as the acceptance rate at what we all consider the top finance journals. So getting into the program here is roughly on a par of getting into one of the top finance journals. It's pretty intense. Fortunately, I didn't have to make those hard calls. There were 46 session chairs who reviewed all of these papers and decided which ones belong in the program. My job is pretty easy. I go, that goes to you, and that goes to you, and they have to do all the work of reading it and sorting it out. So I owe a huge thanks to the session chairs, who were a real pleasure to work with. And as Rick said, I have to thank David as well. I have heard the President and the President-elect and the Vice President year after year stand up and thank David Pyle. And I'm cynical enough, I just assume that that was okay. This is a guy who can affect their welfare. They're going to suck up. Well, now that I'm actually in the position, it's more than sucking up. I don't do that. This guy really has a huge impact on my welfare, and a very positive impact on my welfare and the welfare of the whole institution. So I can assure you all of those thanks in the past have been very sincere. And so, David, thank you very much. I think a round of applause here. And then I also have to thank Rick, who first gave me a heck of a lot of guidance about how you actually do this thing of handing papers out to people. And then second, Rick made a huge investment last year. We are now using SSRN to manage the program process. And having talked to people who have done it in the past, where they had 100, 700, 800 papers in their office, it's a heck of a lot easier on the computer. Well, it's a heck of a lot easier on the computer once the process is up and running. Rick and David last year bore a lot of costs to streamline the process, figure out all the bugs in SSRN, and for that, I really appreciate it. So thank you very much. And I will turn the mic over now to Jeremy, who is, you're next, right? Right, that was in order? Yeah. Who's going to give us a description of the travel grants.
Okay, thanks, Ken. So I was in charge of a much less competitive program, one where the acceptance rates actually turned out to be 100%. So I got only to make people happy and give away free money, which was the travel grants. So the travel grants has two distinct components. The first are the PhD student grants, where we award $1,250 to doctoral students who are not yet on the job market, so that they can come to the meetings. We've been doing this now for several years. By all accounts, the program has been going very well, very successfully. In fact, this year we upped the budget. Last year we had a budget for 40 grants. This year we upped it to 50, and we guessed just about right. We ended up giving away 48 of those travel grants. The second part, which is a little bit newer component, is we give grants also to scholars in developing countries, again, so that they can come and attend the meetings. This piece is in its second year, and it's much smaller in scale. We budgeted, we set aside funds so that we could do 10 of these grants, and ended up awarding 8 of them. So just on behalf of the AFA, we're delighted that those of you who are here. I thought I'd gamble a little bit and see if I could ask people to stand up, and so we could acknowledge you. Hopefully some of you showed up. All right, and that's basically it, and I'll turn it over to Cam Harvey, who's going to give us his report as the editor of the Journal of Finance.
Thanks, Jeremy. It's a great honor to stand here and to give my first report. 2006 was a good year for the Journal, and actually I had very little to do with it. The articles that were published in 2006, 87% were Rob's articles and 13% were Rick's. And next year, I think 2 or 3 will be Rick's and the rest will be Rob's. So in a couple of years, maybe. We had 1,237 submissions and resubmissions in 2006, slightly down from 2005. We track things like citations and impact factors, and that's reported usually in the editor's report. And we had citations in 2005 to articles published in 2003 and 2004 of 8,200. And that ranks 4th amongst all economics and business journals. So number 1, AER, Econometrica, and we're about 1,000 behind the JPE. So that's pretty impressive. But note that the articles published in 2003, 2004, I think are all Rick's articles. So not even Rob yet. So we're doing well on that dimension. The turnaround is very good. Turnaround in 2006 improved a little bit. So now 70% of the papers are returned within 60 days. And the tail, the papers that take more than 100 days, only about 8%. So there's improvement, a little bit of improvement in 2006 on that. I have been helped a lot in the first 6 months, in particular by the former editor, Rob Stambaugh, who really invaluable advice to get this going smoothly. And my co-editor, John Graham, who has really helped me a lot. And of course, all of the associate editors who have asked a lot in the last 6 months. The last thing I need to mention is maybe one of the better moves that I made was to retain Wendy Washburn as the editorial assistant. So she had the experience doing this job, and she lives in Philadelphia. I'm in Durham, North Carolina, and it works really well electronically. So I think the transition was really helped by having Wendy. I guess the last thing that I'd like to do is maybe the most fun, and that is the awards. So we have 2 awards, the Brattle Award and the Smith-Breeden Prize. In the past, the Smith-Breeden has been a first place and then 2 distinguished papers, and Brattle's been a first place and a second place paper. And Brattle was generous enough to increase the number of prizes to match the Smith-Breeden prize. So we have this year a first prize and 2 distinguished papers for both of the awards. There were, for each of the awards, 8 finalists. So there were 2 rounds of voting by the associate editors, and the first round isolated 8 finalists, and the second round established the winners. So what I'd like to do is to go down, and I would like to invite the former editor, Rob Stambaugh, to help me hand out the awards, and my co-editor, John Graham. We're going to start with the Brattle Award, and I would like to invite James Dow, who's a professor of finance at London Business School and a senior advisor to Brattle, to help us hand out the awards.